Hi, Acadiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Welcome to the Friday edition of Let's Talk Tropics. It is high noon here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and it's a hot summer day, but we are starting to see a few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms firing up with those hot temperatures. But fortunately, we don't have a whole lot of tropical weather to talk about. A lot of the stuff is kind of shifting over on the western side of Central America over on the Pacific side, and I do think we're going to have a little action there over the course of the weekend. For the Atlantic side, looks like we're going to have to wait a week or two before we see anything getting interesting. But I want to look outside real quick here as we run through our midday. It's 88 degrees under partly cloudy skies. We are expecting a high of 91 with a slight chance for a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Feels like 94 with the heat index, dew point up to 72, and that humidity continues to climb. All of that thanks to those southerly breezes right now out of the southwest at around 7 miles per hour. And you can see that the area roadways are looking good here. We've got partly cloudy skies over most areas, so if you got some travel plans across Acadiana, it's not really going to give you any weather issues, at least too much, but we do have some scattered showers and thunderstorms that are on the radar right now. We've got some action here over northern parts of Allen Parish along US Highway 165, then up the 167 there in northern parts of Evangeline Parish, north of Turkey Creek, going into southern Rapides. Then you got a couple of little showers there west of Delcombe on the 14, and that stretches down to around Esther in the eastern part of Vermilion Parish. A couple of spotty showers there over Iberia, and then getting into St. Mary. We'll go ahead and grab the Hammond radar so we can see what else is going on here along the coast. As you get down toward Grand Isle and over toward Cocodrie, you've got some scattered showers and thunderstorms there too. So that's what we're looking at least for the afternoon. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of rain, but there will be those spotty showers and thunderstorms. And looking at the national picture, you can see our local waters, the Gulf, the Western Caribbean, and the Western Atlantic looking very quiet. Although, remember a couple of days ago, the National Hurricane Center had a little blip of a 10% window of opportunity for something to develop over the Carolina coastline. That's what this is right about here. And right now it looks like it's just going to become a non-tropical low pressure area and then kind of cruise its way out into the Atlantic Ocean. So if you were wondering what happened with that from a couple of days ago, that's what we're looking at there. Locally in our coastal waters, I think we're looking good. If you've got to do some boating, or for our friends that are working on the offshore platforms that are out there, temperatures are quite hot, but we've got a decent breeze out of the south and southwest, about 10, maybe up to 15 knots, and seas running about 1 to 2 feet. But look at the skies over the Gulf. It is gorgeous out there. Got a little bit of Saharan dust kind of mixing in over the western half of the Gulf. But really, a lot of clear skies, some high, thin clouds out there, and a few widely scattered showers are starting to develop with the afternoon sea breeze there along the coast of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And then you got a little bit more in the way of cloudiness there over Cuba. Looking down at Central America, and really this is probably the region that's going to get the most active here over the next couple of weeks, especially when we're looking at some of the models. But the Central American gyre, which is kind of a big, broad, low pressure area that kind of situates itself over southern Mexico. Sometimes it drifts a little bit farther toward the east, but you get kind of disturbances that will kind of rotate around that gyre. And occasionally, if you get something to develop in that particular area, you get a chance for that to kind of shove its way into the Gulf. But I really think the center of that gyre is going to be staying a little bit farther to the west here over the next several days. But then as we get into the next maybe week or two, let's say go 2 weeks from today, I think it might be shifting a little bit farther off toward the east, and we might be able to get some action there in the western part of the Caribbean. But that gyre is producing some interesting stuff there on the Pacific side. We've actually got two areas that have a high chance for development there along the southern coast of Mexico. But hurricane season does start in the central and eastern Pacific on May 15th. So they're a month in, and we're just, a few days in here on the Atlantic side. Looking at the Caribbean, it is also very quiet. We do have some rain showers that have been persistent there around Trinidad and Tobago, and then pushing down in those far southern Windward Islands. And we've also seen some decent rainfall off the Panamanian coast. Some of that is stretching its way into Nicaragua. But Cuba, over toward Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and Virgin Islands, and working your way all the way down the Leeward and Windward Islands and the Bahamas as well. everything there looking just fine. Same goes with the outer parts of the Atlantic. You can kind of catch some of that Saharan dust that's blowing off the African continent and moving there across the islands over the eastern Caribbean. But we're really not seeing any significant tropical waves out in the middle part of the Atlantic. A lot of the time, once you start to get maybe in the latter part of July, early part of August, that's when a lot of this stuff really starts to get going out here in the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean. But last year we had Beryl that developed way out here and actually made its way all the way across the Caribbean. Of course, we know it came into Texas, but that one was a Category 5 hurricane at one time, and it was the earliest Category 5 on record. So 2024 started really robust, and then it kind of just dropped off completely for about 2 months and then picked up again as we got into September, October, and November. But at least at this time, I'm not seeing a whole lot on here. The National Hurricane Center also not saying we're going to see any tropical activity over the Atlantic Basin, at least over the next 7 days. But I have showed you the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook, which goes into week 2 and week 3. This is updated once a week. We get it on Tuesdays, I have it available on Wednesday because it doesn't update until late in the day on Tuesday. But you can see that January 11th through January 17th, and I would say particularly after June 16th, is where we might be able to see a little more action there over the Western Caribbean or the Bay of Campeche. But the Pacific stays the hot spot really for week 2 and week 3. Now, that's also areas where we see a lot of our tropical weather develop during the month of June. The Gulf is pretty much open for business, as well as the Western Caribbean and the Yucatan Channel. And then you get those areas from Florida up through the Carolinas near the Bahamas. It's also a hot spot during the month of June. And on average, we usually see 1 or 2 named storms during the month of June. Of course, those water temperatures are quite warm. In fact, this map looks a little bit hotter out there than what it was looking back at yesterday. And we've got some water temperatures that are exceeding 31 degrees Celsius. So you're getting up into the 86, 87 degree range there over the western tip of Cuba. And even parts of the Gulf are showing water temperatures pushing 28 to 29. So you're right there in the mid 80s. So everything across the Gulf of Gulf can go ahead and support tropical systems that would already be there and could also support ones that are trying to develop. And as far as compared to normal, the Gulf is a bit above normal on the temperatures, and the same goes for the western part of the Caribbean. Although it looks promising there over the central part of the Caribbean and some spots there off the Florida coast near the Bahamas, do remember those water temperatures, even though they're below normal, are still already above that 80-degree threshold. So tropical weather can form just about anywhere as long as the right atmospheric conditions are there based on those water temperatures. And that warm water goes pretty deep. And remember that Western Caribbean, Yucatan Channel, southern part of the Gulf is the most likely place that you would see tropical development during the month of June. And right now it's got the highest tropical cyclone heat potential. So it's got that heat content. That warm water goes very deep. So anything that develops can tap into that. And occasionally you can get some rapid intensification with tropical systems that get over high heat content. Now, there are several things that inhibit tropical development, and one of those is wind shear. When you've got wind speeds going in different directions or different speeds at different levels of the atmosphere, it can kind of push over a developing tropical system, or you've probably heard the term shear apart. And basically what happens when you've got a lot of wind shear, look at the bottom graphic, as that wind shear comes in, it tends to push the center of circulation into more of a tilted cone or column. You need a more vertically stacked column like you see there in the top image there with no vertical wind shear. When you get more of a vertically stacked column like that and little, if any, wind shear affecting a system, it can develop quite rapidly and it can get pretty strong too. But the more vertical wind shear that you have, the more tilted your center of circulation is going to be. It will also blow away some of the thunderstorms that are just starting to get organized when a tropical depression is trying to get its act together. So as long as we've got a lot of wind shear, that does inhibit tropical development out over the Atlantic Basin. And the other thing is the Saharan dust. And we showed you that there on the satellite image. You could see there was a ton of it. Now, this is kind of more of a visualized satellite image, and you can see that heavy dust that's coming off the African continent and moving nearly 3/4 of the way across the ocean there to where it reaches the eastern part of the Caribbean. And then you've got some spotty areas of Saharan dust out over the central and western Caribbean. And like I said, some of that was kind of filtering in over the western part of the Gulf as well. And that's why we've been seeing some pretty colors in the sunrises and sunsets over the last several days. So let's go ahead and jump into the four computer models, or the four global models rather. And the reason why we start with the global model is we want to look at the long range stuff. And if there was anything that was already developed or maybe was heading in our direction, when you get within that 3 to 5 day window, you can start using your medium range forecast models. And then when you're really starting to go hour by hour, let's say we've got a formed tropical system that's coming our way, we can go into those short range models, the HRRR, or the other short range models that update every hour and give us a little bit more high resolution details. So we start with the GFS, which is one of our global models. Again, not a high resolution model. It goes out 10 days, or rather it goes out 16 days. I'm giving you the 10 days here, but it's not exactly the most accurate model, especially as you go out beyond day 5, but it's perfectly trustworthy. But a lot of folks since the beginning of hurricane season have been posting some of the GFS models that are beyond 10 days. But there were a few of them that were showing circulations over the southern Gulf and even maybe something super strong coming toward the northern Gulf Coast. Over the course of the week, the GFS has been kind of correcting itself. And you can see, as I was saying earlier, it looks more as you get in the latter part of this image, and we're about the middle here. Now we're starting to squeeze our way toward the end. But you can see that there's a gathering of moisture there over Central America. And that Central American gyre might be getting a little bit more active beyond the 16th or the 17th of June, so 10 or 11 days out. And then things look a little bit more interesting on the GFS when you're going out day 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. But do remember, when you're getting that far out in a forecast, there's going to be a whole lot of change by the time you reach that particular date. Now, here's a Euro model. And the Euro model, every other run will go out 16 days. And this one is just giving you the latest 10 days, and it's not really agreeing a whole lot with the GFS, but you can see the gathering of moisture there in those final frames over Central America, but more particularly over the western, rather the southern part of the Pacific Ocean there, south of the Mexican coastline, looks to be a little bit more active. And the National Hurricane Center thinks that some of that is going to be pretty active based on what their forecasts are for the next several days. And hi, Sandra. How you doing today on the afternoon? Thanks for laying a couple of words down there in the chat box. Latest Canadian model is also really not showing much action here over the next week to 10 days. The Canadian model only goes out 10 days, so this is the maximum I can give you on this one. But once again, if you look there over the Pacific side, west of Central America, things seem to be a little more active there than what we're going to be seeing on the eastern side of Central America. And finally, the Icon model, which only goes out 7 days, does start to show some moisture building in the Western Caribbean, which is very similar to what the Canadian and the Euro and even the GFS, but the GFS is really the only thing that's trying to spin something up near the Yucatan and maybe move it over into the southern part of the Bay of Campeche. So right now, only one out of the four models is predicting something. And I will say that the GFS, all of the lows that it has been predicting, it hasn't been very consistent. Yesterday, it was kind of consistent trying to build something in the eastern part of the Gulf, but today that's kind of gone in the model. So not real trustworthy when it comes to the GFS, but we'll watch it over the weekend, but I wouldn't anticipate any problems as we go through Saturday and Sunday. And in fact, for the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, but I will say getting into the third or fourth week in June, we will probably start to get a little bit more action based on some of the computer models, but hurricane season, as you know, ramps up in August, peaks in the early part of September, and then starts a decline after that. But last year we had a pretty busy October and November across parts of the Gulf waters. So something to watch out for over the next couple of days. And yes, Sandra, I agree with you. Don't want to see any hurricanes, but I could really use an afternoon shower. I had some thunder at my house yesterday, but it never rained. I was really bummed. I had to go out and water all the plants. They were looking pretty rotten this morning. Real quick, I kind of gave some of you folks a little bit of homework here try to get some of just take one line of this graphic. And I was out in New Iberia yesterday at the Slyman Theater for the Community Emergency Response team, which is CERT over in Iberia Parish. I did a little talk there, and they were talking about hurricane preparedness. They do the response stuff, but what your job is to prepare so that you can take care of yourself. But over the weekend, if you can just take one line of this graphic and maybe get that done. That'd be something real easy you can do, such as gathering batteries, flashlights, water, non-perishable foods. Or you can do the second line. Make sure your first aid kit is stocked. Make sure you've got extra medicine, personal hygiene, and cleaners just in case something comes and you got to do some cleanup. Something that's super easy is you can take out your IDs, your insurance, important papers, and take pictures of those and leave them on your phone. That way you've got a digital copy. And then maybe find your basic tool set. And if you got kids or pets, make sure you got entertainment and all of the supplies for them too. And if you want to try to get that done, at least, like I said, just take one line of this and get that done this weekend. And then the next line, the next week, and the next line. And by the time the 4th of July rolls around, you're going to be way ahead of just about everybody. And also what I talked about yesterday in New Iberia is Acadiana really, I mean, we had some close calls when it came to the tropical systems over the course of 2024, but we really didn't have to put a lot of our plans in action. But so you might actually have some hurricane supplies still left over from last year. And then at the same time, remember that big snowstorm we had in January? Yeah, a snowstorm in South Louisiana. A lot of people gathered supplies for that too. So you may be able to pull some of the supplies from your winter storm kit that you didn't use and put those into your hurricane kit. So you actually might be a little bit more ahead of the game than you think you are. And it's not too hard to put a hurricane kit together and put a plan together as well. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. This is Let's Talk Tropics, and I really appreciate those of you who watched today, and also my friends here who are commenting in the chat box. And yep, Sandra, I'm going to work on getting some of that rain. Probably early next week is when we'll be able to put the hose down and not have to worry about doing all that watering. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and also turn on the notifications. That way when when Let's Talk Tropics starts up, or if we do any severe weather coverage that might be live, you know when I'm live. And if you put that notification on, plus you can hear my daily forecast every weekday morning at 7 o'clock. It's called Acadiana Weather Today, a short morning chat on your upcoming weather conditions and how they're going to affect your day. Also, you can hear my forecast on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And then we're looking at my social media pages there if you want to follow those. And of course, make sure you get that Acadiana Weather Today followed on YouTube. And yep, boater, I know about those with the generator and the gasoline. I got another graphic, the one that I showed you here. Real quick, I'll just go back to it. This is Be Hurricane Ready of what you can do now, but you can also see what we can do a week out, where you can see top off the tanks on there. So yeah, I got those. And then of course you got 72 hours, but I really want to focus on this first one here, so folks kind of get just the basics that they need. And make sure you get that gasoline about a week out rather than wait in line with everybody else. So I hope you all have a really great weekend. Enjoy this hot weather. Hopefully I'll deliver a couple of isolated showers to a few of you to cool you down. If I don't see you for the rest of the weekend, I look forward to seeing you on Monday for Acadiana Weather Today at 7 a.m. And, of course, Let's Talk Tropics live at noon. Have a great weekend.